Imagine a country that rises from revolution and civil war to become a nuclear superpower, shaping the fate of the entire world, then collapses on live television without a major foreign invasion. That country was the Soviet Union. This is the story of the USSR from 1922 to 1991. The Soviet Union was born from the ruins of the Russian Empire. After the revolutions of 1917 and a brutal civil war, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, secured power. On December 30th, 1922, several socialist republics united to form the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. The new government promised a society built on state ownership of major industries, centralized economic planning, and the elimination of class inequality. But turning that promise into reality would demand enormous sacrifice. During the early 1920s, the Soviet state remained fragile. Lenin introduced the new economic policy, allowing limited market activity to revive production after years of war and chaos. Yet Lenin's health declined rapidly, and when he died in 1924, the Communist Party was thrown into a fierce internal power struggle. Out of that struggle emerged Joseph Stalin, who would transform the Soviet Union through forced modernization and unprecedented political control. Stalin pushed rapid industrialization through a series of 5-year plans. Heavy industry, steel, coal, machinery, electricity became the priority. Massive projects arose across the country, and cities expanded as millions were pulled into factories. At the same time, Stalin forced agriculture into collective farms, breaking the independence of rural communities and tightening state control over food production. The result included widespread suffering, dislocation, and catastrophic famine in several regions. Alongside this economic upheaval came political terror. In the Great Purges of the late 1930s, Stalin eliminated real and imagined rivals through show trials, imprisonment, and executions. The Soviet system became intensely centralized, with loyalty enforced by fear. Then came World War II, the defining test of the Soviet state. In 1941, Nazi Germany invaded the USSR in an enormous assault. The war became a struggle for survival. The Soviet Union suffered staggering losses, but it mobilized its population and industry on a massive scale. Brutal battles like Stalingrad marked turning points, and by 1945, the Red Army had pushed into Berlin. Victory made the USSR one of the world's dominant powers, but the cost in lives and destruction was immense. After the war, the USSR entered a new era as a superpower. Eastern Europe fell under Soviet influence, and communist governments were installed across the region. The world split into competing blocs, and a long global rivalry began, the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union both feared the other's ideology and power, and the conflict played out through propaganda, espionage, arms races, and proxy wars, rather than direct battlefield combat between the two superpowers. Stalin died in 1953, and the Soviet leadership faced a critical question: could the system continue the same way without him? Over time, Nikita Khrushchev rose to prominence. In 1956, he delivered a shocking speech denouncing Stalin's abuses, beginning a period known as de-Stalinization. The Soviet Union still remained a one-party state, but the most extreme forms of terror were reduced. Khrushchev tried to reform the economy and improve living standards while still competing fiercely with the West. The Soviet Union also achieved extraordinary scientific milestones. In 1957, it launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, stunning the world and igniting the space race. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, a major symbolic victory that reinforced the Soviet Union's image as a modern, technologically advanced society. Yet the Cold War was never just about symbols. It was also about nuclear weapons and military power. The most dangerous moment came in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world came terrifyingly close to nuclear war. In the end, both sides stepped back, but the tension exposed how fragile global peace had become. In 1964, Khrushchev was removed from power, and Leonid Brezhnev took control. Under Brezhnev, the Soviet Union sought stability at home and strength abroad. The state continued to provide guaranteed jobs, housing, and basic social services. But over time, the economy slowed. The centralized planning system struggled to innovate, productivity stagnated, and corruption spread through the bureaucracy. This era became known as the period of stagnation. The Soviet Union looked powerful from the outside, but inside it faced growing structural weakness. Internationally, the USSR expanded its influence in parts of the developing world, supporting allied governments and movements. At times, it pursued détente, a reduction of tensions with the United States, but rivalry remained. In 1979, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan became a major turning point. What was expected to be a quick intervention turned into a long, grinding conflict. The war drained resources, damaged morale, and increased criticism of the Soviet system both at home and abroad. By the early 1980s, the Soviet Union faced deepening economic problems, rising public frustration, and a technological gap with the West. After a period of rapid leadership changes, Mikhail Gorbachev came to power in 1985 with a bold plan: reform the system to save it. He introduced perestroika, meaning restructuring, to modernize the economy, and glasnost, meaning openness, to encourage greater transparency and public discussion. But glasnost had unintended consequences. As censorship weakened, people began openly discussing government failures, past crimes, and the poor state of daily life. Nationalist movements strengthened across several Soviet republics, demanding greater autonomy or independence. Meanwhile, perestroika destabilized the old economic system without creating a strong new one. Shortages increased, prices became more chaotic, and confidence in the government declined. At the same time, Soviet control over Eastern Europe began to collapse. In 1989, communist governments across the region fell one after another. The Berlin Wall came down, a symbol that the Soviet sphere was crumbling. Unlike earlier decades, the USSR did not send tanks to stop it. Gorbachev believed reform and reduced confrontation were necessary, but the momentum of change was now unstoppable. In 1991, the Soviet Union reached its breaking point. Hardliners attempted a coup against Gorbachev, hoping to restore strict control. The coup failed, but it fatally weakened the central government. Republics moved rapidly toward independence, and the Communist Party lost its authority. In December 1991, the Soviet Union was formally dissolved. The Russian Federation emerged as the largest successor state, and the world's bipolar Cold War order came to an end. So what was the Soviet Union? It was a revolutionary project that reshaped society, defeated Nazi Germany, and rivaled the United States for global dominance. It achieved remarkable successes in industry, science, and space, but it also relied on coercion, repression, and rigid centralized control. Over time, economic stagnation, costly foreign commitments, and rising demands for freedom and national identity exposed the system's weaknesses. And in the end, the USSR did not collapse in a single dramatic battle, but through a chain of pressures that the state could no longer contain. That is the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, a story of ambition, sacrifice, power, and ultimately dissolution, one of the most world-changing arcs of the 20th century.